What's up guys, it's me Strawhead Nate and I'm back with another One Piece video this week. This week we have chapter 1142 of One Piece titled The Things I Find Scary. And it's currently a very scary situation here on Elbaf, and that is because the ancient prophecy of Ragnarok has now come to fruition with the freeing of Loki at the end of last chapter. There's also the looming threat of the Gods Knights, who actually take action in this chapter to get their plan started. Their plan being to kidnap the children of Elbaf and use them as a bargaining chip to essentially force the giants to bow down to the world government. So if you want to know about how the Gods Knights use their powers in order to get their plan into motion, just wait till I cover that later in this video. So without further ado, let's get into the chapter after you like the video and subscribe to the channel. The cover this week is once again part of the Yamato cover series in the land of Wano. And after idly watching the torture of Ulti and Page 1 at the hands of Who's Who and his minions, Yamato decided to finally take action in this chapter, and she attacks Who's Who with a Thunder Bagua, promptly defeating him in just one attack. And now the chapter begins in kind of a weird place because we're at the Walrus School, where the children are being attacked by a giant snake, which they call the world snake Jormungandr. Usually such a beast like this would be only found in the underworld of Elbaf, but this snake for some reason is up in the sun layer. This might have something to do with Ragnarok, and it's quite the random event for the snake to be attacking the kids, but it's essentially used as just a way to show off that the teachers of the school can be just as powerful as any of the warriors. And speaking of those teachers, we then cut to the teacher's lounge, where we see three teachers, Mr. Breed, Mr. Kiba, and Miss Anji. These three prepare to do something about this emergency, and they're new characters, so I'll describe them briefly. We obviously know Miss Anji already, but Mr. Breed is the math teacher, and he pretty much looks like one of the Beast Pirates. And then Mr. Kiba is the principal, and he's basically just a walrus. So it's likely that he's the one who is the namesake for the Walrus School. And now, outside, the giant snake is just about to eat one of the children, but luckily Mr. Kiba comes in and smacks the giant snake in the head with his big hammer. And then for the combo attack, Saul comes in from the top of one of the branches to come down and punch the snake's head with a hockey-infused fist. So these attacks defeat the snake quite easily, and it shows off that the seemingly docile teachers of the Walrus School can be really powerful if they want to be. It's even mentioned that Mr. Kiba was once a member of the great giant warrior pirates, which are the same crew as Dory and Bragi. The kids are all impressed by the showing of power from these men, but it's not any time for celebration just yet, because they then hear a scream from inside. And then inside the school, Mr. Wolf, a newly introduced teacher, is laying on the ground all bloody and wounded, and he lets everyone know that there was a big group of students that had just walked off without saying a word. And they see all these children in a group over on the beach in the distance, and they're all sleepwalking in a straight line. Clearly, we know that this is the work of the Gods Knights, specifically Gunko, because we see that Gunko's arrow is actually guiding these children to walk while they're sleeping. And Mr. Kiba immediately goes to sound the horn now to alert all the Elbaf of the danger. And he does this not only because the kids are wandering off, but also because there's another major threat. In the distance, they see huge, giant monsters that aren't usually there. And it's obvious to Kiba that he must sound the horn now. And to make matters worse, even more of the kids inside of the school are now fainting, which means that they're probably the next targets of the God's Knights. But now, we switch over to the underworld, the realm of the dead, where Loki is commanding Luffy to undo his last shackle on his leg. So Loki, he's armed with his mighty hammer called Ragnarok, and he says that he's powerful enough, even in his current state, which he's partially tied up and he's been wounded, he could still kill everyone here. But he says if they release his last shackle, then he'll have pity on them all. And he lets them know that if he attacks now, he's gonna cause great flames to form. And that's Elbaf's biggest weakness, so nobody wants that to happen. And then Haryuden, his brother, screams for him to stop, but that's all useless. Then, in a fit of rage, Loki swings Ragnarok at the Atom Tree, which puts a face of shock on everyone's face. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and all of the giants who are there with them. And with this attack on the tree, lightning seems to attack in the same spot, showing that Loki might have some sort of manipulation of lightning. And when this lightning strikes the tree, fires begin all around the sun layer, kind of as collateral damage. And the sun layer is where all of the giants live, so they actually see these fires, and along with the emergency horn sound from Mr. Kiba, these giants are now taking action to protect their country. So, from the looks of it, Loki is still being portrayed as an evil guy, but I'm still holding off on calling him a villain just yet, because I still think our expectations can be subverted. While this all seems bad for now, I'm afraid it only gets worse from here in the country of Elbaf. Now, back in the Walrus School, the teachers are looking out in the distance at these giant monsters that they saw. Miss Anji tells the rest of them her theory on why these monsters have spawned in. She reminisces about earlier in the day when she was telling the children in the school to imagine what is frightening the most to them, which is a really odd and random activity to be doing with these kids, but whatever. All of the kids shout their different ideas of what scares them the most, and I'll list them all here because they all become really important. They are Loki, Fenrir, Nika, ghosts, Draugr, storms, Neohogger, Jormungandr, and the funniest of all, my mom. Basically, all of these things that I listed come to life in the way that the kids imagine them. For example, Nika is interpreted to be a liberator in Luffy's case, but instead he's a destroyer because that's how the child views the sun god Nika. So in a big double-page spread on the last pages of the chapter, we see all of the ginormous creatures birthed from the nightmares of the children creeping in the horizon. And I mean all of them, because there's even that kid's mom being created as a giant demon monster. And we learn from the last few panels that this is all the doing of Saint Kiringham. We know this because the other God's Knights, Gunko and Summers, tell him that he's done good work. Basically, it's a team effort for the God's Knights in this plan. While Kiringham puts the kids to sleep and then brings all of their nightmares into reality, Gunko directs the kids to their ship so that they could use them as hostages and get the giants to bow down to them. And with the last line of the chapter, Gunko, with a serious face in response to the question of what she's scared of, responds, Sun God Nika, showing that she might have some sort of grudge against the sun god, and this may be because of something that happened to her in her past. But that's all for this chapter. It's getting more and more wacky every chapter here on Elbaf, and I wouldn't be surprised if even more crazy shit happens just to up the stakes next chapter. And it's like Oda has to one-up the previous arc, which is Egghead, and he has to one-up the stakes of the arc, which is really hard to do because the last arc's villains were the Gorosei, the people who pretty much rule the world. And it seems now that we have left behind all of the humor in Elbaf to just focus in on all the seriousness of Ragnarok. Loki himself has shown that he can destroy islands. The God's Knights have shown that they might be Admiral to Gorosei power level, and then these dream monsters have now all spawned, and they're huge. So it's going to take a lot of manpower to save Elbaf from Ragnarok. And I'd also assume that the last words from Gunko, being Sun God Nika, is foreshadowing that Luffy is probably going to power up soon. Maybe as soon as the next chapter. Luffy has the power of dreams, and then these giant monsters have all spawned from the power of nightmares, so it could be an interesting dichotomy there. But we also might see Luffy fight Loki, because that's who he's currently faced off against right now. So we'll see what happens with that next chapter, which we're unfortunately going to have to wait a little while for because there is a break next week. So if you made it to the end of this video, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to show your support, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.